The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Representative Palmer, here recognized for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk a little bit about supply chain, and obviously our supply chain consists of rail, truck, and shipping, air freight, but also consists of pipelines. I just want to know how much sense it makes to shut down Line 5 in Michigan and potentially the pipeline into Missouri providing natural gas that I think originated from Mercatus, not Mercatus, from the Marcellus Shale formation. Does that make sense, Mr. Pugliese?
You know, as we've discussed previously, there are enormous strategic and direct economic benefits from having the entire North American production platform be as efficient and as cost-effective and as safe as possible. And we lose those benefits when we try to make that platform less efficient.
Let's talk about how it's going to impact people, though. A lot of what we discuss here is just kind of politics and technical, and I'm not sure if how many people really reflect on how it actually impacts people. But we're on pace to face the biggest surge in electricity costs since the Obama administration. And it's a direct result of the Biden administration's policies. And I kind of think that maybe they learned it from the Obama administration since he served as vice president in that administration. It's going to be the costliest winter in decades, I think, maybe, but certainly in years for households that are not only going to be hit with high household utility bills, but they're going to get hit with much higher cost at the pump. As a matter of fact, there was a Canadian study that showed that when you take into account gasoline prices plus the increase in household energy costs, that we're talking the bottom quintile, the lowest 20% of household incomes, paying almost 19% of their household income just on energy. That's going to have a devastating impact on a lot of lives. And one of my big concerns, and here's a study from Northwestern University Department of Economics on how inexpensive heating reduces winter mortality. And I brought this up in the committee before, and I have yet to hear from one of my colleagues across the aisle express the same concerns that I do about the number of people who are going to die this winter because they can't afford to adequately heat their homes. We know it's a scandal in Europe. Mr. Zindler mentioned all these nations that have gone to renewables, and I looked at the ones who've gone to solar and wind, and there's 30 nations that, most of them in Europe, as a matter of fact, I think all of them are in Europe, that are reporting excess winter deaths, and the United Kingdom is sixth. And they had 9,700 people die last winter because, you know, they had respiratory issues, they had cardiovascular issues, and that really hurt people when they can't afford to adequately heat their homes. Are you aware of that, Mr. Pugliese?
I don't have recent data on the deaths, but let me just say, for large segments of the American population, rising energy prices are devastating because it does become a large percentage of their income. We did a webinar on the Transportation Climate Initiative, and in fact, it was, you know, the sort of the Northeast states. And the primary concern from state legislators was, well, we're interested in this, but we don't want to see low-income families hurt.
Well, it's really going to hurt people in the Northwest. I looked at Vermont, and the people in the lowest quintile, their average household income's less than $28,000, 18.3%. And that they pay 18.3% of their total income. That's 7 times more than the people in the top 20% of household incomes in Vermont. This is going to have a devastating impact on people living in those colder climates. And I'm going to get into some other stuff later on, but when you combine this with inflation that we're already experiencing, the fact that energy costs are the most inflationary component of the economy. We're literally condemning some people to death. And I just think that there's a cost that's not being calculated here that apparently my colleagues across the aisle are not that concerned about, but I certainly am. And I'm going to speak up for those people. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida. Representative Soto, you're recognized for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The challenge. Climate change is an existential threat to the human race. In Florida, we're facing intensifying hurricanes, rising seas, and the hottest years on record.